Hello, Beyond Fortune family. Get ready for an intense story filled with twists, heart, and destiny. If you love romances that start with a mistake and end with a new beginning, this one is for you. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell us which city you're watching from. Your presence here makes all the difference. Shall we begin? It was supposed to be an ordinary night, but the elevator decided to play with fate. Joanne balanced a box of cupcakes, juggling a dripping umbrella in her other hand. On the display, the number 21 blinked insistently, though she swore she had pressed 20. A gust of wind swept through the lobby as the door slid open. Minimalist hallway, gray carpet, expensive silence only dollar rents could buy. Delivery for 20B, she repeated, trying to convince herself. And she knocked on the first door with a polished brass plate she found. The door opened with a controlled click. No chain, no cautious peek. On the other side, a tall man, shoulders tense, white shirt without a wrinkle, storm gray eyes, an expression that said little time, zero patience. "You're late," he said, voice low and cutting. Joanne blinked, confused, hugging the box like a sugary shield. "Late for... to save my night of meetings, I suppose. Come in." She took 2 steps, sneakers leaving tiny rain prints on the marble. The apartment was all glass, steel, and silence, almost a city aquarium. "I'm just... cupcake delivery," she stammered, raising the box awkwardly. He frowned as if the entire world had gotten something wrong. "You're not the temporary assistant?" "Not since... never." A muscle in his jaw twitched, betraying life beneath the suit. "Then I knocked on the wrong door," she concluded, nervous laughter bubbling. "And walked into the wrong apartment," she added, already retreating. "And probably the wrong life too," she muttered under her breath. "Wait." His word came firm, like an emergency brake. "Where are those cupcakes supposed to go?" "20B, birthday for a neighbor I barely know." "This is 21A, he informed, merciless as a label. Joanne bit her lip, dead from shame, alive with stubbornness. "Fine, I'll leave, go back, walk down, rewind, and pretend none of this happened." She turned too quickly, her soul slipping. On the gleaming marble, the world spun, the box flew, the umbrella turned into a clumsy weapon. He caught her by the waist in a reflex that betrayed his coldness. For a second, time framed them perfectly. "Careful," he said, as if forbidding fate's collision. The box landed miraculously intact on the Persian rug. Joanne inhaled, testing dignity, balance, and pride. "Thanks, anonymous hero of 21A, she joked, trying to break the ice. He didn't smile, his gaze only sharpened. "Luca Hale," he said, like signing an involuntary contract. "Joanne Evans," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. The spark passed quietly as if it didn't want to be noticed. "Are you always this... direct?" she asked, gathering the cupcakes. "I'm always busy," he corrected, picking up the fallen umbrella. On the wall, clocks marked 3 time zones: London, New York, Tokyo. "Night of decisions?" "Night of fires to put out," he returned, without metaphor. "I've got great advice. Sugar." "I've got a greater need, precision," she laughed, pointing at the box. "Precision of frosting saves projects too." He allowed a millimeter of humor at the corner of his mouth. "If the theory's good, a practical test is fair." "Are you negotiating cupcakes?" "I'm buying time," he said, clearing space on the stone counter. She set the box down, pulled out a paper flower, revealed the glossy top. "Half off for those who save unexpected falls." He bit into one, just one, as if auditing a contract. "Not bad." "Translation, great, but you've got an image to protect." "Your translation," he replied, but the second cupcake was already gone. Joanne gestured toward the hall. "Bathroom? I need to dry this mess." "Right, second." "Door." She left, trailing rain and courage. In the mirror, she breathed, fixed her hair, chased away shame. "What are you doing, Joanne? Walking into a stranger's apartment? A stranger who caught you before the floor did." The laugh came small and sincere, brightening her tired face. She thought about 20B, about the birthday song still waiting. She also thought about the gray eyes that measured storms. Just drop off the box and leave. Simple. When she returned, Luca was on the phone, voice sharp as steel. "No panic. We delay the announcement, not the truth of the numbers." He ended the call and looked at her with fresh interest. "You sound like someone who's had to fix things under pressure." "Me? I fix bills with flour, sugar, and a good discount." "And yourself?" "With humor. Sometimes it fails, but I don't give up." He tilted his head, curious despite himself. "Whose birthday was it?" "A neighbor I hardly ever see. Sometimes life just needs cake. Or a wrong knock on the wrong door." "Hey, don't steal credit from the faulty elevator." Luca exhaled as if surrendering for a moment. "If you want, I can walk you to 20B. You already saved me from falling. No need to save my sense of direction." Still, they walked together down the quiet hallway. Lights flickered on by, sensor in obedient waves. In the elevator, the reflection merged height, nerves, and strange calm. "Have you lived here long?" she asked, filling the silence. "Long enough to memorize silence." "Silence isn't memorized, it's learned," she countered. At 20B, voices and music seeped under the door. Joanne knocked, this time with certainty and the right address. A woman opened with a smile, the scent of candles and a crowded home. "The cupcakes are here," she cheered, hugging Joanne without ceremony. "Sorry for the delay," 21A hijacked. "My delivery," Joanne joked. "Happens more than you think," the neighbor winked. Luca looked away as if avoiding recognition. "Come in, please," the birthday girl urged, arms wide. Joanne hesitated, glancing at Luca like asking fate's permission. 5 minutes, he said, surprising himself by giving in. The apartment was less glass, more plants and crooked frames. The room laughed with ordinary people, plastic cups, imperfect playlists. Joanne set the box down in the center. Peace sealed with frosting. Applause, cell phones, flashes that weren't scandal. Someone recognized Luca, but only as the serious upstairs neighbor. He relaxed a fraction, which for him was nearly a dance. 21A's cupcake approved, teased a man in a t-shirt. Still under audit, Luca replied, surprising his own humor. Joanne watched, pleased at the crack in his ice. You should decorate with more laughter than clocks, she whispered. Laughter runs late less often, he conceded quietly. On leaving, the hallway gave them back the expensive silence. Thanks for not turning my mistake into a report, Joanne said. Thanks for not turning my control into a prison, he almost said. Instead, he offered a small card, no logo. If the elevator insists on bringing you to 21A, let me know. She raised a brow. Was that an invitation or a warning? It was. Precision, with room for luck. Back in his glass aquarium, Luca turned on only a few lights. The remaining cupcakes sat on the counter, proof of chance. He touched the closed piano with 2 fingers, not brave enough to open it. On the screen, spreadsheets called his name, demanding decisions. But there was another spreadsheet now, the one of a wrong knock, an unexpected line, a human variable defying prediction. Joanne Evans, he tested aloud, just to hear the echo. On the bus ride home, Joanne held the card delicately. The ordinary world throbbed again. Bills, deadlines, the morning oven. But the grip on her waist, firm, steady, lingered as warmth. She smiled to herself, embarrassed, grateful to the stubborn universe. A wrong knock isn't a mistake, it's an invitation, she thought. And she tucked the card into the pocket nearest her heart. The city moved on, but something inside her slowed. Outside, a red security camera light blinked. A shadow in the garage scribbled notes in a cheap notebook. The lens caught no face, only methodical haste. In the black diary, 2 letters, LH. At the center of the page, 21A. New variable, JE. The elevator closed, carrying more than people. It carried storylines. And life, indifferent to floors, marked a new beginning. The next morning rose rainy, Manhattan's sky painted in metallic gray. Joanne balanced 2 grocery bags, hurrying up the steps. The broken umbrella from the night before still dripped, a reminder of chaos. "Today, no flying cupcakes, please," she muttered to herself. But fate rarely listens to such simple pleas. Turning the corner, she nearly collided with Luca. He wore a suit without a tie, expression caught between exhausted and alert. The bag swayed dangerously, and an apple rolled across the floor. Luca caught it in a swift reflex, handing it over, like a signed contract. "You need a supply of coordination, Evans. And you need a supply of kindness, Hale." The brief silence between them was broken by his phone's sharp buzz. An urgent notification flashed in red letters. He swiped, frown deepening, face growing darker. "Everything okay?" she ventured, clutching the bags. "Depends on your definition of okay," he muttered. He typed something quickly and pocketed the phone with calculated force. "You shouldn't walk so distracted. This building's safe, but not always." "Are you speaking as the landlord or the prophet?" "As someone who's seen doors open the wrong way." She smiled, remembering last night. "Yeah, a wrong knock." Before he could answer, 2 men in dark suits entered the lobby. They carried briefcases, tense eyes trying to look discreet. Joanne noticed Luca's instant change. He froze into stone. His eyes hardened, bulletproof glass in human form. "Mr. Hale, we need your signature on these documents immediately." "Not in public," he snapped without even looking at them. The men stepped back, not before sizing Joanne up head to toe. When they were alone again, she raised an eyebrow. "Your friends seem charming. Vultures in expensive suits. You have an impressive gift for depressing metaphors." He sighed, patience worn thin. "You don't understand, Joanne. This isn't just business, it's survival." She blinked, startled. "Survival? Are we talking finance or war?" He didn't answer, simply took the bags from her hands without asking. "You live at 20B, right? Let's go." She followed, intrigued, as rain pounded the windows. In the elevator, silence hung like an invisible arena. He stood tall, posture rigid, but his fingers tapped restlessly. Joanne risked a comment. "You're not big on trust, are you?" "Trust is the most expensive mistake I've ever made." Door to 20B clicked open with familiar ease. He set the bags neatly on the table, flawless even in simple gestures. Joanne sighed, brushing damp hair back. "Thanks, but you didn't have to." "I don't do favors," he replied almost by reflex. "Then what do you call what you just did?" "Collateral damage management." She burst into laughter, unable to stop herself. "You turn even an apple into a report." He studied her a beat too long. "You turn disasters into laughter. I don't know if that's skill or defense." Her smile faded, surprised by his precision. Silence lingered, heavy and intimate, until his phone buzzed again. He answered coldly, "I'm busy." On the other end, someone spoke too fast. "No, we won't fold. The press can wait." The line cut, static slicing the air. Luca exhaled, storing the phone away. "You've got secrets, Hale." "And you've got too much curiosity, Evans." She crossed her arms, teasing. "Curiosity drives journalists." One eyebrow arched. "You're a journalist?" "Freelance, but sometimes I'd rather be just a cupcake delivery girl." "You don't strike me as someone who takes the easy road. And you don't strike me as someone who chooses company." He nearly smiled, but held it back. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. Joanne and Luca exchanged silent glances. The shadows of the 2 suited men darkened the doorway. "They won't leave easily," Luca murmured. She swallowed hard. "Are they dangerous?" "Let's just say they'd rather see me fall than succeed. Then better not let the wrong doors open again." He stared at her, weighing each word. "You're right, Evans, and that's the problem." She couldn't decide whether to laugh or run. Suddenly a bang. The doorknob rattled violently. "Open up, Mr. Hale. We know you're in there. Joanne froze, heart hammering. Luca raised a hand for silence. The men pounded harder, voices sharp. Last warning. After this, it gets worse. Joanne whispered, You should call building. Security. Security's always on the side of the highest bidder. And who pays more than you? The ones betting everything to see me fall. His eyes burned with the memory of old betrayals. Silence returned, thick with threat. The men retreated, footsteps fading down the hall. Joanne exhaled in relief, but tension clung to the air. They'll be back, won't they? Of course, until they get what they want. And what do they want? To see my name ruined across every headline. She stood tall, meeting his gaze. You talk like you've already lost. His brow furrowed. I don't lose. I calculate deadlines. And I don't like people who quit before the fight starts. Her boldness made him falter for a second. You don't grasp the size of this. Maybe not, but silence kills too. Outside, the rain eased, leaving the smell of wet earth. Luca stepped closer, voice lower. Why don't you run from me like everyone else would? Because I didn't knock on the wrong door, Hale. Of course you did. No. I knocked on the one fate chose. He froze, swallowing whatever answer lingered. The air between them thickened, almost tangible. Joanne felt his breath, controlled, yet uneven. An invisible thread bound their differences into something inevitable. You're dangerous, Evans. Because I carry cupcakes or because I'm not afraid of you? Because you don't realize what could happen if you stay. Maybe that's exactly why I will. Luca turned away, grabbing a glass of water. His hands trembled slightly despite his facade. She noticed, but pretended not to. You need someone to remind you even millionaires fall. He stared into the glass, his reflection warped. And you need to understand some falls. Have no one to catch you. We'll see, she answered, firm. The phone buzzed again, but he switched it off without looking. Joanne watched him, more intrigued than ever. There was more than business here. Something raw, painful. He dodged confessions like dodging bullets, yet she sensed the fracture, the human behind the armor. You don't have to tell me anything. Hale. Then why do you look like you already know? She sighed, picking up the ruined umbrella from the corner. Because sometimes we see what isn't said. He followed her to the door, expression unreadable. Joanne. He stopped, hesitated, swallowed the words. Take care of yourself. More than you think. She walked out, heart racing, certain something had begun, and that wrong knock would never be forgotten. Late afternoon draped the building in a heavy air, as if every window hid a secret. Joanne came back from work exhausted, her umbrella now definitively in pieces. Her mind kept replaying the morning, the suited men and Luca's stare. It felt like she'd stumbled into something far bigger than herself. But why this pull in her chest, as if she shouldn't walk away? The elevator stopped abruptly on the 21st floor. And unluckily, or by fate, Luca stepped in. He wasn't in a suit, but a black jacket and a war-ready gaze. He looked more human, less impenetrable, still strung tight with tension. Good evening, he said, emotionless, yet not missing her fatigue. Joanne gave a quick nod back, trying to seem indifferent. Silence in the elevator echoed louder than any word. Until he broke it. Those men today, you didn't mention them to anyone, did you? Do I look like the kind who sells secrets? Luca drew a long breath, eyes fixed on the lit panel. It's not about selling. It's about surviving. Joanne folded her arms. You talk like you're on a battlefield. Sometimes Manhattan's worse than a trench. She studied him closely, trying to read the fractures in his voice. There was pain there, hidden between steel and spreadsheets. And for the first time she wanted to understand, not judge. The elevator opened on the 20th floor, but Luca didn't step out. Aren't you getting off? She asked, puzzled. Not yet. May I come in? She hesitated. Letting the mysterious millionaire into her place felt insane, but something about him, in that instant, seemed almost lost. She opened the door. Just don't touch my recipe books. He entered, looking around the small space like it was another planet. You live here? He asked, almost incredulous. Yeah, Hale. Normal people fit in normal apartments. Her tone drew a smile from him, for the first time since they'd met. A rare smile, almost imperceptible but real. I can't remember the last time I was in a place like this. Like what? That feels alive. Joanne fell quiet, surprised. His eyes drifted over a shelf of makeshift vases and old photos. No luxury, just memories. And it seemed each detail hit him harder than any boardroom agenda. You're brave enough to open the wrong doors, Luca. And you're brave enough not to kick me out. They both laughed, but the subtext carried weight. He sat on the worn couch, adjusting like he didn't quite fit. You shouldn't be here, Joanne said soberly. And yet I am. You're a problem, Hale. Or a poorly disguised solution. She huffed, almost laughing. You're arrogant even when you try to be funny. The laugh died when his phone buzzed again. He answered on speaker without noticing. A harsh voice on the other end. You have until Friday or everyone will know. Luca ended the call instantly, gaze turning to flame. Joanne went cold. Know what? He said nothing, his face all shadow. That's not your concern. You knocked on my wrong door, Hale. That already made me part of this story. Her voice was firm, heart racing. He looked at her as if weighing the risk of telling the truth. At last, he spoke low. They want to destroy me. They funded a web of lies. You don't look like an innocent man hunted, you look guilty trying to wash clean. That's exactly what they want everyone to believe. Joanne stepped back, split between fear and curiosity. He stood, pacing the tiny space. People love easy stories, the rich villain against the weak. And you? I just wanted silence. I've done things no one knows. And I never will. Tell. That sounds exactly like a guilty man, Hale. He stopped, eyes locked on hers. Or like someone who'd rather take the hits alone than use innocence as shields. The words hung between them. Something tightened in Joanne's chest, unexpected. Why did you tell me that? Because you deserve more than seeing me as a caricature. She blinked, confused, and moved. He looked away, unable to hold that confession in the open. But if you know too much, you become a target too. Thunder rolled outside as if the universe co-signed his warning. Joanne clenched her hands, resolute. I don't run from storms, Hale. You should. Storms rip up roots. And sometimes they wash the dirt away. He studied her, intrigued by her defiance, as if no one had ever answered him like that. Silence returned, but now it carried something new. Not just tension, but a spark of trust. You shouldn't trust me, Joanne. And you shouldn't be here, remember? He laughed, tired but genuine. The sound unsettled her in a way she hated to admit, and she hated admitting she liked it. Suddenly, heavy knocks pounded the door. Joanne froze. They didn't give up, Luca whispered. She bit her lip. What do we do? He moved to the window, scanning the street. Waiting isn't an option. They don't knock just to talk. Joanne felt her heart hammering. He came back to her, eyes hard but voice soft. Do you trust me? Of course not. But it seems I don't have a choice. A half smile tugged at him, laced with irony. Excellent answer. The pounding grew louder, more insistent. Without noticing, Joanne gripped his arm. The contact startled her. Luca's steadiness, the tension in his body, that raw energy. He looked at her, for a second, only a second, differently. Not as the inconvenient neighbor, but an unlikely ally. Time seemed to slow, even with danger at the door. It's going to be okay, he said. and she wanted to believe him. The knocking stopped. The hallway sank into silence. Joanne and Luca traded wary looks. "They come whenever they want," he said, stepping back. She breathed deep, steadying her nerves. "Then tell me this. If they hate you so much, why?" He closed his eyes for a moment as if the memory hurt. "Because I beat them once, and no one forgives the man who takes power away." She had no words for the hardness in him, but beneath the fear, something sparked. Empathy. The millionaire wasn't just arrogance and shine. There was pain, invisible battles, a worn-out man, and maybe that was what made him human. "You don't have to carry this alone," she murmured. He looked at her, surprised by the sincerity. "Everyone carries it alone in the end, Evans." "Maybe, but along the way, someone can hold the heavy bag." He chuckled softly, remembering the apple he'd caught for her. "You're impossible, and you're insufferable." The look they shared wasn't war anymore. It was the beginning of a silent pact. The storm roared outside, but an odd calm settled inside. Joanne realized that, fear aside, she didn't want him to leave. And Luca, though he wouldn't admit it, seemed to have found shelter. One wrong door, one wrong knock, she thought. But maybe it was the right knock of fate. And in that instant, something opened in them both, something no storm would ever be able to shut. The next morning, Joanne woke to the muffled sounds of the building stirring. Doors slamming, elevators beeping, neighbors grumbling down the hallways. But something was different. A shadow lingered on her floor. When she opened her door, a brown envelope lay on the doormat. No sender. She picked it up cautiously, her heart racing as she recognized the firm handwriting. It was from him. "Luca." 3 words only. "Don't talk to anyone." She stepped back, the note trembling in her hand. Why did he keep dragging her into this dangerous game? Maybe it was pride, maybe fear, but something in him screamed truth. Still, she didn't want to become another piece on his chessboard. Closing the door, she leaned her forehead against the cool wood. "I should run from this," she whispered to herself. But deep down, she knew she couldn't anymore. Hours later, at the corner cafe, Luca appeared suddenly. No suit, no mask, of power, just a light shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. "You read it?" he asked bluntly. "I'm not your employee, Hale," she shot back, firm. He leaned across the table, gray eyes burning into hers. "This isn't about obedience. It's about survival." A chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Who are they, Luca?" Joanne pressed, but he looked away. "Men who never accept losing. They'll ruin me at any cost. And why leave a note at my door? That just puts me in more danger. Because I trust you more than anyone else around me." The words caught Joanne off guard, warming something deep in her chest. She wanted to laugh it off, but his seriousness didn't allow it. The weight of it was far too real. As they argued, a man in a black suit walked into the cafe. His gaze swept the room until it locked onto Luca. The millionaire didn't move a muscle, but Joanne saw the tension in his shoulders. "Let's go," he said, standing abruptly. "I haven't even finished my coffee." "Now, Evans," and his tone allowed no resistance. Outside, the fine rain turned the city into a blurred mosaic. He pulled her into a narrow alley, footsteps quick, almost urgent. "Are you going to explain what's going on?" Joanne demanded. "Later. Right now I need you out of their line of sight." "They're who, Hale? I'm tired of riddles." He stopped, staring at her with raw intensity. "The more you know, the more dangerous it becomes for both of us." She didn't back down. "I'm not afraid of the truth. I'm afraid of the lie you're feeding me." For a moment his gaze faltered, as if she'd struck a hidden wound. "I'm not lying, Joanne. I just can't open all the doors at once." "Then give me at least one." He inhaled deeply, as if staring into an abyss. "They don't want money. They want silence." Her heart pounded. Silence. About what? He looked away, eyes fixed on the street where cars passed, oblivious. About where I really put my money. About who I help in secret. Joanne blinked, stunned. You sound like a criminal trying to play hero. Or like someone tired of always being cast as the villain. The confession hung heavy between them. Joanne tried to process, but before she could, the suited man reappeared. Luca grabbed her hand instinctively and pulled her into a nearby bookstore. Among hardcovers and the smell of paper, they hid in silence. Their hands remained locked, warm, firm, complicit. She wanted to pull away, but something in her refused to let go. Their breathing sounded louder than the footsteps outside. "He's gone," Joanne whispered, peeking carefully. Luca nodded, but still didn't release her hand. His storm gray eyes locked on hers, too intense to evade. "You shouldn't be here with me. And yet you keep dragging me along." He gave a crooked, weary smile laced with irony. "Maybe because you're the only one who doesn't pretend not to see me." The silence that followed was as heavy as it was intimate. Joanne's heart thudded, unsure if it was fear or something else. She didn't want to let herself be drawn in, but every word of his broke through her walls. "You see yourself as a ghost, Hale?" she whispered. "Maybe I am. Ghosts don't need approval. But even ghosts crave someone who truly sees them." He blinked, surprised by her clarity. Back at the building, Joanne was still conflicted. Half of her wanted to lock the door and pretend nothing had happened. The other half ached for answers only Luca seemed to hold. When she entered her apartment, another envelope lay under her door. Inside, a single phrase cut from a newspaper. "Be careful who you trust." The paper slipped from her hands, fingers gone cold. Now it wasn't just about Luca. It was about her too. That night, rain against the windows sounded like a warning song. Joanne lay in bed, but sleep never came. Every memory of the day replayed like a film. His hand gripping hers, his eyes confessing more than his words allowed. But also the shadows chasing him, the men in suits who never smiled. "I'm in over my head," she thought, clutching the pillow. And yet, her heart refused to let go. Upstairs, Luca paced the penthouse, mind burning. Every decision weighed like a chess game with no winners. But against all logic, the image haunting him wasn't of his enemies. It was hers, Joanne. The way she didn't back down, the way she faced him without fear. Her voice echoed in him, soft, firm, uncorrupted. The only thing in his life that still felt untouched. He stopped at the window, gazing over the city lights. "One mistake, one wrong knock," he murmured. But maybe the mistake was what he needed most. The loneliness had become unbearable, and now there was a spark. A spark that could burn everything, or light the way forward. He pressed his forehead to the cool glass, eyes shut. And for the first time in years, he wanted to trust. Meanwhile, Joanne picked up the next morning's newspaper. On the front page, a headline screamed, "Hale under secret investigation?" Her stomach dropped. The pieces were aligning, but toward a dangerous end. If what he said was true, someone was trying to destroy him publicly. But what if it was all just a carefully built mask? The doubt gnawed deeper than the fear. At work, colleagues whispered loudly, as if the whole building were in on it. "Rich. Men always hide dirt," one scoffed. "Anyone living in glass towers forgets they can break too," another sneered. Joanne stayed silent, but the pressure was crushing. She didn't want to believe the worst. Yet the world seemed to conspire. Every sideways glance was another sentence against Luca. The weight of keeping his secret consumed her. That night, she knocked at the 25th floor door. When Luca opened, he looked more exhausted than ever. "Did you see the headlines?" she asked. "I did. It's not the first time they've tried to bury me. But you're not the only one paying the price, Hale. I'm on the line now too." His jaw tightened, eyes darkening. "Then you already know. Don't look back. They always chase anyone who dares stand with me." His words were both a warning and a confession. Joanne felt the ground vanish under her feet. And at the same time, something inside her solidified. Then I'll look ahead and I'll be there. He blinked, startled as if he'd never expected loyalty from anyone. The silence that followed was heavy and laced with something new. Hope. An invisible pact began to form between them. When she left, the night felt darker than ever. But inside her, a spark burned steady. Luca wasn't just an arrogant, troubled millionaire. He was a man surrounded by enemies and by suffocating loneliness. And maybe, just maybe, it was that loneliness pulling her closer. Deep down, she knew. Her life had already changed forever, and whether she liked it or not, there was no turning back. Joanne spent the day with her mind in turmoil. The headlines still echoed in her head, now mixed with the memory of Luca's eyes. There was something in him that slipped past the cold, calculating tycoon stereotype. Behind the armor, she sensed an open wound, something he hid from the world. Even so, reason screamed not to trust, but each time she tried to pull away, something invisible tugged her back, a force stronger than fear or doubt. By late afternoon, she found another envelope under her door. This time, not a threat, but a handwritten invitation. I need to talk to you, rooftop 9 p.m. L. Joanne sighed, debating whether she should go. Her mind said no, but her heart had already decided. At 9 on the dot, she climbed to the building's top floor. The city's cold wind wrapped around her as the door swung open. Luca stood there by the edge, staring at Manhattan's endless lights. His silhouette against the skyline looked like a man alone against the world. You came, he said without turning. Against all common sense, Joanne replied, trying to sound steady. He let out a short, almost bitter laugh. Common sense never did much for me. Finally, he faced her. His storm-gray eyes reflected the lit city. I want to show you something, but I need you to promise you won't tell anyone. Joanne raised her brows. More secrets, Hale? Not secrets. Truths that don't fit into headlines. He pulled a silver flash drive from his pocket and held it out. Everything they're hiding is in here, and everything they're trying to blame on me. Joanne took it, feeling the symbolic weight it carried. Why trust me with this? Because you're the only one who doesn't owe me anything. Not money, not power. So you think I'm disposable? On the contrary, he shot back. I think you're incorruptible. The words surprised him as much as they did her. For a moment, they stood silent, caught in each other's gaze. Back in her apartment, she couldn't sleep. She opened her laptop and plugged in the drive. Documents and reports filled the screen. Transfers to community schools, neighborhood, clinics, social projects. Each line showed money leaving Luca's companies, but going to forgotten causes. It was as if he were a ghost funding hope. And suddenly, it all made sense. So that's what they were trying to silence. Joanne murmured. The money laundering accusations were just a cover to hide the truth. Someone powerful wanted Luca framed as a criminal. The glow of the screen lit her face, shock and admiration mingling. Every click revealed more proof of his innocence. But it also revealed the size of the danger he was in. And now that she knew, that danger reached for her too. The next morning, Luca showed up at her door early. You saw it? He asked, voice low but urgent. I did, and I admit I didn't expect it. You expected to find dirt, didn't you? Joanne hesitated, then nodded. And what did you find? Someone who does the right thing in silence. He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted, aside. Don't spare my feelings, Evans. I'm used to being cast as the villain. Then start getting used to being seen as a man. The sentence slipped out before she could stop it. Luca looked up, startled by the intensity of her words. For an instant, a faint smile traced his lips. But it vanished, swallowed by gravity. If you keep digging, they'll come after you, Luca warned. Then let them. I won't pretend I don't know the truth. You're too stubborn for your own good, and you're too proud to accept help. Their clash was like fire and gasoline. Paradoxically, it was what kept them together. and they both knew it. That night, Joanne received an anonymous call. The low voice made her shiver. "Hand over what you were given, or you'll be the next headline." The dry click ended the call, leaving her in shock. She slid down to the floor, breathing deeply. Fear was real, palpable. But along with it rose a courage she didn't know she had. Upstairs, Luca paced his office. His phone showed messages from lawyers and reporters, each one more poisonous than the last. But among all of them, only one thing weighed on him: Joanne. He went down to the 24th floor and knocked on her door. "We need to talk," he said, as soon as she opened. She let him in without a word. They sat at the small kitchen table, a contradiction to his usual luxury. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, oddly intimate. "They already know you have the drive," Luca confessed. "I noticed," Joanne replied, still pale. "Then you're in their sights. And you think I'm going to run?" "I think you should." She leaned forward, eyes sparking. "I don't run from the truth, and neither should you." He drew a breath as if absorbing her courage. "You don't understand. I'm not afraid for me. I'm afraid of what they'll do to you. Maybe for the first time in my life, someone is afraid for me," she said softly. The words struck deep in Luca, and his mask nearly cracked. Silence sat heavy with meaning. His eyes settled on hers with overwhelming intensity. For a second, Joanne forgot to breathe. It felt like each layer of his ice was melting right there in front of her. "You disarm me, Evans," he murmured, almost a confession. "Is that good or bad?" "Terrifying." Before they could say more, a crash boomed in the hallway. Someone had pounded on Joanne's door, hard. They looked at each other, fear etched on their faces. "Don't open it," Luca ordered under his breath. The pounding began again, harder. Then silence, the kind that frightens the most. Luca stood and moved to the window. Below, a black car pulled up and killed its headlights. "They're here," he said, voice cold as ice. "And now?" Joanne whispered. "Now you're going to trust me." He grabbed his phone and made a quick call. "Plan C side entrance, now." Minutes later, a silver SUV slid to a stop on the back street. "Let's go," Luca said, taking Joanne's hand. "Where?" "Somewhere they won't find you." She hesitated, then followed. Deep down, it wasn't only fear guiding her. It was a strange, dangerous, undeniable trust. Inside the car, the tension was suffocating. Joanne stared out the window, the city streaking by in blurs of light. "Why me? Why trust me?" she asked. Luca took his time, weighing each word. "Because you don't owe me anything. And still, you stayed." Her heart thudded harder, and the answer stuck in her throat. As the car pulled away, Luca laid his hand over hers, a small gesture loaded with promise. "I won't let anything happen to you." Joanne turned, startled by his resolve. Beneath the cold exterior was a fierce loyalty, and for the first time she believed every word, even if the whole world doubted him. The silver SUV slid to a discreet warehouse on the west side, unmarked. Inside, it was another world. Concrete walls, steel tables, tense silence. Luca keyed in a code. Interior doors opened with a dry beep. "Temporary refuge," he said, not with pride, but necessity. Joanne took in the cameras, the city map across 3 monitors. "You live like this? Under siege mode?" "When your name turns into a target, you learn fast," he replied. He offered her a sweatshirt and a mug of tea. The care was unexpected. Joanne wrapped her hands around the cup, still trembling inside. "Who are they, Luca?" "Names." "I deserve names." He stared at the floor, breathing like a man choosing which wound to reveal. 2 fronts, Riverton Capital and someone on my own board." "From your own board?" "The kind of betrayal that costs more than money." The central screen flickered. A corporate headshot appeared. "Gabe Mercer," Luca said, bitterness sharp in his tone. "We started together. I opened doors, he learned the wrong shortcuts." And Riverton bankrolls the mud, buys the headlines, and pays for cameras to go blind when it suits them. A chill crawled up Joanne's neck. The note under my door. They knew where I live. Luca nodded, his eyes darkening. That's when I decided to pull you out of reach. You make decisions for me with irritating ease, she shot back. Protection doesn't ask permission. Evans, trust doesn't get imposed either. The silence grew heavy, almost solid between them. He looked away first, conceding ground. There's more, Lucas said, opening an old folder. Before the war with Riverton, I lost someone. The photo showed a middle-aged man, half-smile, calm eyes. My mentor. He had an accident during a bid we challenged. Joanne leaned closer, her heart written across her face. You think it was staged? I know it was. Mercer's name lurks in the shadows. What does that have to do with the hidden donations? After that, I started funding directly, quietly. So no one could call it marketing, no one could taint the projects, and so no one could trace it back to those in need. Joanne breathed deep, fitting invisible pieces together. And now they turned your silence into guilt. Oldest trick in the book. A low alarm buzzed. Luca checked a side screen. Suspicious plate circling the block, no panic. Joanne nodded, though her body stayed taut. He crossed to a cabinet, pulling out a small gray case. Blind router, secure channel. We need someone we can trust. Does such a person exist? Few. One of them, Nora. The name dropped heavier than Joanne expected. Who's Nora? Head of compliance, and in the past, someone important. Important how? Important enough to know. My fractures. Joanne swallowed the sting of jealousy she didn't want to name. You're calling her now? The encrypted call brought a woman's steady voice. You disappeared, Hale. I had good reasons, he answered, glancing sideways at Joanne. Riverton pushed the press and a shell fund I'm tracing. And I've got spreadsheets that'll blow up in Mercer's face. Lucas smiled without joy. Send through. Channel 3. No names on the phone. Nora cut in. You know that. The call ended, leaving static in the air. Joanne crossed her arms, feigning practicality instead of hurt. She trusts you. She did once. Now she trusts the data. Great. So what am I in this equation? The one who reminds me not to become the equation. For the first time, he disarmed her with gentleness. The file arrived. Flows, emails, phantom consultancies, fake invoices. The trail pointed to an asset auction that would wipe out 2 real NGOs. They don't just want to ruin you, they want to hijack the projects. And parade children as props for fake philanthropy. Joanne shut her eyes for a second, biting back fury. I could publish this, and you'd become a full target in 1 second. I became a target the moment I opened the wrong door. She shot back. Not wrong, he said softly, almost a whisper. A faint tremor crossed Luca's hand on the table. Joanne noticed but said nothing. She simply let her fingers brush his. The touch was brief, precise, like signing a blank page. Then let's do it right, she concluded. No shortcuts, no loose ends. The plan took shape across sticky notes and split screens. Nora would deliver the thread. Joanne would write the story with cross-proof. Luca would activate 2 minor donors to shield the real projects. And if the board leaks first? I'll lock the quorum, he answered flat. With what? With the fear they have of my preferential vote. You could have told me that earlier, Joanne accused, startled. I could. Trust, I didn't know yet. She bit back her reply, understanding more than she wanted. Trust is built in action, not speeches. And destroyed in one gesture, he added. They locked eyes, recognizing both the abyss and the bridge, and chose the bridge. A metallic crash cut through the warehouse night. Luca raised a hand. Silence. Breathe through your nose. Count to 3. Footsteps outside, then nothing. The sound of a distant engine. He checked the thermal camera, heat signals dispersing, no approach. Perimeter test, he diagnosed. They're measuring our response. And learning we don't run. When the tension eased, true fatigue seeped in. Joanne leaned against the industrial sofa, laughing without humor. My editor thinks I'm stubborn, he has no idea. Your editor's going to hate what's coming. I write for the reader stuck in the storm. Luca watched her like discovering a new language. And I invest in those who can't even afford an umbrella. She studied him carefully, as if archiving details for tomorrow. Then why the mask? Why the iron in your voice? Because the world demands hardness from those who pay the bill. And who pays you? The memory of the one I couldn't save. The answer came clean, without flourish, and it hurt. Joanne had no reply, so she stayed. Her phone vibrated with an unknown number. Evans, listen carefully. Return what you've got or you go down too. This time there was no veiled threat, just certainty. Luca grabbed the phone, recorded, triangulated in seconds. Masked call, but bounced off a meat-packing antenna. Mercer? Or someone ready to bleed for him? This changes our clock, Luca decided, starting a timer. 48 hours to publish with legal backing. And to make sure no one dismantles the projects in the chaos. Nora holds the audit, I hold the board, you hold the truth. Joanne breathed deep, nodding like one accepting a sacred mission. And who holds you? He smirked faintly. You knock, I stay. When the night gave way to dawn's first gray, nothing was easy. But for the first time there was a route, even through wreckage. Luca draped a thin blanket over Joanne's shoulders, wordless. She caught his hand for a second, and it was enough. Outside, the city sharpened its headlines. Inside, they sharpened their evidence. Between fall and flight, they chose the flame of truth, and promised, without saying it, not to cross each other's line. Dawn broke with a glassy silence ready to shatter. In the warehouse, screens showed calendars, arrows, deadlines stabbed in red. Board at 11, legal at noon, press at 6, Luca recited. Joanne finished her coffee and shut the laptop with a decisive click. Story's 90% done, missing 2 confirmations and the right to reply note. I'll ask Nora for the technical audit memo, he said. And I'll lock the 2 sources, she answered, steady. Outside the warehouse, the air smelled like promised rain. Joanne pulled up her hood, but Luca held her forearm, subtle. Secure line only, no repeated routes. I know, Hale, not my first hurricane. He tipped his face, shadow of a tired smile. It's mine. With someone beside me. Then don't lose sight of me, she said, and left. At the newsroom, phones rang like alarms, screens pinged with rumors. The business editor cornered. Evans, I hear you've got a bomb. I've got facts, not bombs, she said, giving no ground. He tried to snatch the file. She tensed her arm and flashed a tight smile. It runs with legal review and evidence attached or not at all. This will burn you. It will define me. Meanwhile, on the 42nd floor, the board strapped on polite masks. Gabe Mercer walked in late. Perfect tie, the smile of a man who never loses. Luca, what a coincidence. This crisis on the eve of the auction, he purred. Crises tend to visit homes with unlocked doors, Luca answered. Slides projected numbers, curves, half-truths polished smooth. I motion for the CEO's precautionary suspension, Mercer sang. Sweet. The air thinned. Luca didn't blink. Before the theater, let's show the whole play. He tapped the remote. The Riverton ghost flows filled the screen. Cross payments, deliverable-free consultancies, shell NGOs. A murmur like porcelain cracking rippled down the table. Right of reply? Mercer raised his voice. You'll get justice, not a soundbite, Luca said, ice cold. At the same moment, Joanne's phone buzzed twice. Source A confirmed. She cross-checked stamps, dates, the bridge to the audit. Only one final check remained. A key transfer. She called St. Bridget, the school coordinator in Queens. Checks cleared, reports filed, I confirm every cent. Thank you, Bridget. Today you'll make the news. Let it be for the children, not the wolves, the voice smiled back. Back at the board, Mercer shifted tactics. Silken. Even if third parties erred, the company's image is bleeding. An image without a spine is a billboard in the rain. Luca shot back. My preferential vote stands and the integrity clause is in the minutes. Are you challenging your own peers? I'm reminding them we still own a mirror. The secretary scribbled frantically. Nora sent the report. 8 pages, clinical language, a clean shot. Joanne read, distilled 3 explanatory paragraphs, attached to a secure cloud. She asked Luca for a short statement. No poetry, just bone and truth. Write the way you speak when no one's watching, she said. He breathed, typed, deleted, rewrote 2 lines. Publishing facts doesn't save reputations, it saves real projects. She smiled slightly. That's it. At 2 p.m., an alarm blared in Luca's building. Staff evacuated, sirens sliced. The air, smoke rose from the sub-level. 2 blocks away, Joanne smelled the theater, a distraction for a theft. She slipped down a side passage and took the service stairs. On level 1, 2 men were prying at the physical records vault. Hey, she shouted. Pure madness. They charged. An arm yanked her back at the last second. Luca, no suit, steel eyes, chest heaving. I said secure line, he growled, pushing her behind a column. 1 man lunged. Luca sidestepped and slammed the manual alarm panel. The fire doors thundered shut, trapping the intruders between sectors. Run for stairwell C, he ordered, holding the barrier. I'm not leaving you, she shot back, shaking. Trust me. A second time in 24 hours, he said, without shouting. Their eyes met in a noiseless point. She nodded, swallowed. Fear sprinted up stairwell C. Mid-landing, she glanced back. He was braced, gripping the latch. A guard barreled down with an extinguisher, drawn by the local alarm. The men were contained, coughing, with no exit. Enough to buy time. On the ground floor, the press smelled chaos like sharks. Ms. Evans, are you the journalist backing Hale? Voices jabbed. I back documents, she said, passing by with a clean face. Her phone vibrated. Nora, board postponed. But Mercer set a 4 p.m. presser. He'll paint you as a fallen savior, Joanne told Luca over audio. Let him paint, bring the light, he replied. She opened the laptop in the lobby. 4 tabs, 7 exhibits, 2 technical notes, 3 witnesses. Neutral headline, surgical subhead, a text that doesn't plead, demonstrates. She embedded screenshots, legal redactions, links to reports. Right of reply offered. Deadline 2 hours, space, full, she typed. She sent it to legal, approved. The progress bar filled blue. Publish, she whispered, and clicked. At 4 p.m., Mercer stepped to a polished lectern wearing absolution. We're committed to transparency, he began, voice oiled. The giant screens behind him flickered as headlines exploded. Joanne's story lit up phones across the room. Reporters, once docile, turned predator-eyed. Mr. Mercer, how do you explain the phantom consultancies in your orbit? Color drained from his face. Luca watched from a quiet room. No applause. This isn't victory, it's oxygen, he murmured to himself. His phone buzzed with Nora's short message. Warrant in motion. Another buzz. Projects shielded. Donors. Confirmed. He nodded in silence, buckling his belt before landing. Then he texted Joanne. Ground floor. East entrance. No press. Now. She was already moving. They met in an empty corridor. Cold light, distant footsteps echoing. Joanne stopped an arm's length away, still out of breath from it all. You pull me into the eye of the storm, then tell me to stay calm, she said. You walk into a fire with your laptop open, he countered, almost smiling. They laughed, nervous, adrenaline still bright in their veins. Then laughter made room for what no longer fit into words. Silence, full of everything. I was afraid of making you a target, Luca confessed, voice lower. I already was. I just had to choose a side. And you chose mine. I chose the side that won't sell the future of those with no present. His eyes shone with a beautiful, unposed fatigue. You disarm me, Evans. And you arm me with courage. He stepped closer, then paused, asking permission with his body. Joanne touched his collar, straightening it slowly. Now you're less specter, more human. And you are exactly as you should be, whole. Their hands met halfway, simple, warm, inevitable. No grand declarations, just presence. And in that witnessless corridor, they chose each other. Luca's phone buzzed, warrant executed. Mercer detained for questioning. Joanne's as well. Story trending. National networks requesting updates. She smiled with relief and rested her forehead on his shoulder for a second. It's not over, he warned without spoiling the moment. I know. But today, we breathed. Today, we lived, he corrected soft. She closed her eyes and stored the line away. When they parted, there was no theatrical promise, just a shared direction. Luca offered his hand. Joanne laced her fingers through without hesitation. Outside, sirens faded to rumor. Inside, the pulse slowed. Not an ending, just a finish line for one act and the start of the next. Between boardroom and headline, they won the plot with evidence and care. Now came holding the truth tomorrow, together. And for the first time, they both wanted the exact same thing. The next morning dawned with the city buzzing in rumors. Every paper carried the same photo. Mercer led away in handcuffs, face frozen. The headline read, "Corporate Fraud Exposed, True Accounts Revealed." On Luca's desk, piles of clippings lay beside a cold cup of coffee. He wasn't reading out of vanity, but to confirm the world was finally seeing straight. Joanne stepped in lightly, eyes sharp on his exhaustion. "Didn't sleep?" she asked, setting her hand over his. "I don't usually sleep when the storm has barely passed," he replied. She pulled a chair close, opening her tablet with the reports. Donors reaffirmed support. Schools received full transfers. Then the projects live, Luca murmured, the weight on his shoulders easing. She studied him, catching the line of fatigue on his face. "They live. Because you didn't give in?" she said softly. He looked away, almost shy, as if he didn't know how to take praise. That afternoon, the official press conference drew cameras and sharpened voices. This time, Luca didn't avoid the podium. He wore only a light shirt, sleeves rolled, no armor of suits. "I don't speak for image," he began, voice firm. "I speak for every child who can't afford a lawyer, but deserves a future." Flashes erupted, but he didn't flinch. Joanne at the back smiled. This was the man the world needed to see. Questions rained down. Was it internal betrayal? Did Mercer act alone? Will you be suspended? He answered in short, solid lines, no decoration. Betrayal doesn't change our mission. Proof is already with the courts. The projects will continue, with or without my name attached. A room used to evasions fell into rare silence. One reporter muttered, "That sounds too human for a CEO." Luca only nodded. Exactly. At the end, Joanne caught his eye through the wall of cameras. Brief, but enough to recall the empty corridor they once shared. That intimate second now echoed under spotlights. Yet nothing was lost, only magnified. He stepped down, ignoring microphones, walking straight to her. "Time to go home," he said simply. She understood. Home was no longer just bricks, but presence. That night, the warehouse felt transformed. Lights softened, computers at rest, as if breathing. Joanne typed fast, polishing the last parts of her series. Luca leaned against the wall, hands in pockets, watching in silence. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she asked, not raising her eyes. "Because I never imagined trusting someone so quickly." She smiled, still typing. "And you don't regret it?" He moved closer, until the chair creaked under his presence. "My only regret is not knocking on the wrong door sooner." Joanne laughed, startled, and closed her laptop. Fate loves irony. A mistake that became a beginning. A mistake that became a choice. He corrected. She reached her hand out. He clasped it firmly, a silent pact. The walls bore witness to something bigger than promises. Belonging. Days. Later, new headlines spread. Hale Corporation shielded against fraud. Mercer bargained sentences, deals, clawed at scraps of image. But it no longer mattered. The truth had its voice, and it was loud. Joanne's newsroom called. Her article had been nominated for a national prize. She hung up without a word, just looked at Luca. "You deserve recognition," he told her, earnestly. "I'd rather have silence beside you than applause alone," she replied. The silence that followed wasn't empty, but full. He pulled her gently by the waist. No questions, no hesitation. "I still don't know how to do this." "Right," he confessed, vulnerable. "There's no manual, you just live it," she whispered, and when their lips met, there was no rush. It was the sum of risks, choices, and chaos. A kiss not for spectacle, but permanence. The next morning, sunlight spilled through tall glass. The city looked less hostile from his apartment. Henry. No. Luca, she corrected herself, was still asleep. Without his usual rigidity, he seemed just a tired human man. She traced the faint scar near his jaw from some long-ago fall. He stirred, caught her hand, and held it. "Don't run from mornings, too," he murmured. "I don't run. I record." She laughed softly. He raised a brow. "Going to write about me now?" "Only in my secret diary." "Can I read it?" "Not even if you paid me." They laughed, together, as if the storm had never existed. And in that forgetting, they found the rest they longed for. That afternoon, they visited St. Bridget quietly. Children ran through the yard, unaware of headlines or boards. The coordinator greeted them with hugs and reports in hand. "You're not names in newspapers. You're reasons for school notebooks." Joanne snapped a photo of the simple plaque. "Thank you, anonymous friend." Luca watched from a distance until she pulled him into the frame. No more anonymity. The world needs to know who chose to stay. He hesitated, then nodded, shedding an old weight. "If it inspires, let it not be about image. Let it be an invitation. An invitation to believe things can be different," she added. And there, among peeling walls and honest smiles, the cold man melted. Volunteers' phones captured the scene unscripted. The next day, the photo circled everywhere. Luca Hale with Joanne Evans. The caption improvised. "A wrong door that opened futures." At the office, Nora chuckled, showing them the image. "You two became a symbol of something you didn't even know you were building." Joanne flushed red, but Luca only smiled faintly. "Symbols fade. What matters is the brick left behind." "And you're stacking them together," Nora said. Joanne exchanged a look with him, silent, complicit. Yes, they were. Months passed. The warehouse became a community hub for young journalists. The newsroom lent space, Luca funded structure. Joanne taught ethics, truth, and courage in workshops. He watched from the back, sometimes pretending not to understand her fire. "You're more teacher than reporter now," he teased. "And you're more human than tycoon," she countered. One rainy evening, he took her back to the building where it all began. The corridor still had the same flickering bulb. They stopped at the wrong door, 14B. "If I knock again?" he asked. "Maybe I'll hit you with a frying pan this time," she laughed. "Maybe I'll let you. Just to stay." Their laughter echoed like memory and promise. Inside, a box waited on the table. Documents, keys, foundation papers signed, in both names. "I wanted it to be ours from the start," he said, almost shy. "I didn't need a contract for that," she whispered. "I needed certainty. And now you have it?" He cupped her face, more than ever. The kiss this time wasn't timid or restrained. It was the act of one no longer afraid of being seen, choosing to live in the light. She smiled into it, tears warming her cheeks. I never wanted a fairy tale. Just truth. Then we'll write ours in flesh and bone chapters. The clock struck midnight, but neither cared. The future was already here. Present, whole. On the balcony, they looked at the city that once divided them by floors. Now it was only backdrop for an unlikely story. Joanne rested her head on his shoulder. Finally home. Funny how one mistake changes destinies. It wasn't a mistake, it was a map. And destiny? Destiny is choosing to stay. Thus ended not a fairy tale, but the beginning of permanence. A millionaire who learned to be human. An ordinary woman who proved courage can live in silence. Two worlds that collided by chance and refused to let go. And you, do you believe one mistake can hide the greatest truth of your life? Comment below, like this video, and subscribe to the Beyond Fortune channel. Because the next story might be the one you've been waiting to live.